Hello, and welcome to another episode of Intune.training, the place to learn how to use Microsoft Intune, the Steve and Adam Show with Steve and Adam and special guests Lavanya and Matt. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
It's been so long.
It has been, I know. If you have clicked over here from the Microsoft Intune Suite Tech Accelerator event, thanks for joining us. If you've never been here before, we're really sorry for what you're about to see, but stick with us. It might be fun. Lavanya's got some good stuff. The rest of us are just a bunch of clowns.
Yeah, we're just going to heckle each other.
Yes,
correct.
But here we go. So if you clicked over, or if you've seen this early, this is we're going to be covering the Microsoft Intune Suite. Lavanya is going to walk through one of the components of that, which is going to be the advanced endpoint analytics. So without any further ado, we're going to kick it over to Lavanya. And if you want to kind of intro yourself, and I mean, people may care who Matt is, whatever. And we'll get going.
All right. Thank you, Adam and Stephen, for having me over here. This is my first time doing this. I'm super excited, super thrilled. Matt has set a very high bar of being the host and the presenter. So let's see how this goes. I'm the principal product manager on the Microsoft Intune team, and I'm very passionate about data and analytics. And here I am going to talk a little bit about the AI-driven analytics and what we are doing as part of the advanced endpoint analytics. That's my quick intro. We'll let our person previously known as host to do a quick intro before we get started with this session.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. If you didn't watch the previous video, you should go back and watch that now. Or maybe it's a video after this. I'm not really sure. We haven't posted it yet. But you should watch that video on EPM. But my name is Matt Call, and I'm responsible for Windows security in the Microsoft Intune product set. So I'm here just a peanut gallery commentary and ask some good questions, hopefully.
Thanks for being with us.
All right. I'm still hoping that Adam is not going to ask me some tough questions. With that, why don't we kickstart?
Me and Steve are fighting over controls. All right, Steve, you do it. Do it.
All right. That's true. There we go. We have a
awesome. I still had to do this PowerPoint. You know what? It just comes naturally. So let's make it sound like, oh, we're going to talk about advanced endpoint analytics. For a minute, I forget that this is not that MVP session or the other sessions that we typically have with the customers, but still, I just thought, let me do it.
I think it's just in the blood of a PM. Like, I don't think.
Well, I think it brings principal PM. There has to be a slide deck everywhere.
Oh, definitely. It's okay.
Yes. If somebody holds the same title, it's always a slide deck.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
we always put a link in the description to jump past the slide deck, so it's okay.
All right. I'm moving to the next slide before it catches too much of attention. I think the kind of really talking about what are we trying to solve and how are we trying to make things easier. Being part of various sessions with you all, learning more about what's happening in your ecosystem. One of the things that's very interesting, as well as not very easy, is the scenario of how every environment is getting more and more complex in context of IT, and which is where we are all told, do more with less. I think that's kind of like become the punchline everywhere we get to hear. I don't know, Matt, whether you hear that or not, because Matt is the privileged guy who deals with endpoint privilege management. But budgets are definitely shrinking. So what is it that we can do in that space is what we are going to learn more. I know Matt wanted to say something. Should we just pause and see if he had to add something here?
I think that you're completely correct, Lavanya. I think things are getting harder. Budgets are shrinking. And the way you get ahead is you cheat with data. And that's super important, right?
Definitely.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that statement.
All right. I love to start with this view, not because this is like a pitch, but I think what we have been discussing as our vision kind of continues to say the same, where we talk about endpoint analytics more as the brainchild of Intune and how we are working very hard to bring data from across various sources and talk about three key pivots, right? Like real-time visibility, how do we provide the needed intelligent recommendations? Of course, we have our awesome intelligent people here, but kind of providing these recommendations to make your life more easy, and then eventually not forgetting about the aspect of orchestrating and also the remediation, right? Which is where these three pivots have stayed with us as part of our storytelling, and that doesn't change because we truly believe in this. We have seen the value add, and I don't know if Adam and Stephen do agree to it, but let's hear that from them. What do you think, Adam and Stephen?
I personally love data. I think it's the bedrock that all of what we do is built on. It's phenomenal. And I like to use the term, we may get censored for this, but I like to weaponize data. Like, that's the thing. Like, you have to make it actionable. And having a platform that allows us to do that, I think is really where we need to be, because I mean, I've spent years just sitting, trying to one at a time remediate, clients and do things, or really one at a time figure out what the pattern is that I need to be looking for, or waiting for tickets to come through that, tell me about, being able to pick up the pattern to see that there's issues. Having data that's going to help me figure that stuff out before it happens, before we start getting calls, especially when you have those things like critical changes, and you're going to, you're not really sure what's going to happen. This first time we push this change out, we're going to give it a shot. And those first couple of hours after you've pushed it, you really want to know, am I having an impact? Is it working? Did I fix the thing? Did I break another thing? What's happening? Seeing those trends. And that's what I'm looking forward to in the suite. I know that it's evolving, but I think this is that first step into that world. And so, yeah, I'm on board with this. I'm much more excited about this than I was about the EPM stuff.
Quite rightly. Like, data is such an important thing nowadays. Like, having the ability to have it actionable, I think, is the most important part. The space where I'm working at the moment, we're sitting there and going, well, updates aren't working for these computers. Now there's the ability to know why that update isn't working. And it's makes life so much easier for that IT admin, because they can go, oh, those ones, just tell the user remove data. Things like that.
Yep, totally. I'm completely with you both, and especially the why or something is happening, and then how to fix it. Both of them are super critical. And Adam, personally, I love the term that you use, but I don't think our dear friend Geir would love me saying, oh, weaponizing the data, right? He would just not like it. So you know.
It needs to be actionable. There you go. Action.
Yeah, totally. And I think I'm going to get you all excited with some of the upcoming product features that's already part of Advanced Endpoint Analytics, which we released it as part of the Microsoft Intune Suite. Let's go through a couple of more slides. Like I said, I did have to do a few slides before we get to the interesting part. The three main features that's part of the Advanced Endpoint Analytics is the anomaly detection. And Adam, you're going to love this. And we will talk a little bit about the device scopes and enhanced timeline for faster troubleshooting. So Stephen, I think this is the part that you were talking about, right? Like, having the insight and also knowing how to go about resolving it is so very critical, right? So, and the funny thing you might notice is, why do I have this slide? Because this talks about exactly same three features. So this was my mind trying to figure out whether the other slide was good or this slide was good. I couldn't decide. So I said, let me keep both of them, and we'll do a poll as part of the fun survey at the end of the session. So I think the interesting part is here going to be more of trying to understand each of these features, what it does, kind of get all your feedback to see how we can make this even better. So I think that's kind of like the key takeaway that's going to be for me. But with that, I have kind of heard mixed feedback from our audience base, where when I asked them, have you used scope tags? Some are like, oh, we know about it, but we have not used it. And some of them are, yeah, we use it all the time. So I think the custom device scopes is essentially helping you look at endpoint analytics scores, reports, and insights by being able to slice it and look at it from a granular lens, and leveraging the scope tabs to understand endpoint analytics data in a similar way, right? So this is primarily what custom device scopes are. And I just thought it'll be quick to show few of the screenshots of how this works, because again, every environment is different. And again, how the scope tags have been configured in each of the environment is going to be very different, right? So let's take a look at endpoint analytics and the startup performance. So here you do see that there is a device scope view at the top, and the UX control kind of gives you an option to select the device scope. So here, one of the important things to kind of quickly note here is it's kind of device scopes for all of your insights and recommendation, and scoping it down to the subset of devices you specify. So you get the option to be in the driver's seat, except with the caveat that this is not applicable to proactive remediation. So just wanted to call that out so that we don't miss out on that important aspect. And as you get to this view, you kind of decide on, okay, what device report and what scoping we are going to leverage as we look at the data. And once you have the control selections in place, you come back to this view, you select your option, wherein here we are going with the early adoption group, and you get to see the view and also the insights that's kind of relevant to the scoping that you have leveraged. And then all your sliced data in context of your insights and recommendation is what you would like to see. So kind of that's like a quick summary and a preview into what custom device scopes does for you.
So Lavanya, I'm gonna ask you a question that this is as we do, this is a feature request probably here. So
Always.
I love scope tags. I love filters. It'd be great if there was a way to have scope tags get created via the same mechanism that filters. Basically, I want to make scope tags based on device attributes, or at least have the functionality in your scoping to leverage filter functionality, so you can target things that maybe I don't want to tag my devices with the scope tag, but I want to be able to filter by device model or in that same concept. Does that make sense?
So you're wanting to use these scope tags as filters and filters as scope tags?
Yeah. Because like if, for example, if let's say, so if I'm deploying my applications to a device or to I'm going to deploy an app to all devices, but then I'm going to apply a filter to it, and I want to deploy it to all of my ThinkPad T14 laptops. Great. So then I want to check for I want to use the scoping mechanism here to look at the analytics on those devices only, those devices where I've deployed the app. And so I want to be able to target the same devices that I would have been targeting my application to using the same mechanism, which would be all devices with a filter applied. If that makes sense. I know I've just muddied the water really bad in the beginning of your demo, but sorry.
You're getting it on me, but okay, let me give it back to you, Adam. What are you going to do? You're a manager. Are you really going to use this?
all day long.
It's a fair question that people want to know.
All day long. I will.
The simple fact is he's a manager, so therefore he's interested in the data. And he's looking interested in the dashboards and the reporting. He's not interested in how you actually do the work.
I now have the leisure time to be able to sit and look at data and just click through things. So yes, I definitely need this.
Adam, jokes apart, I think your ask is fair. Probably right after this call, I'm going to think about this feature a little more, and probably off the grid, we will have some more detailed conversation to figure out how you plan on using it in your environment, if you do plan on using it.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm speaking for the community. I know people will ask for it. It will just be a thing.
Totally. And I think that's kind of like the feedback we are looking for, and leverage it in our product feature prioritization. So it's all great, Adam. Keep them coming.
Excellent.
Awesome. Now we're going to talk about something interesting for the data lover out here, Mr. Adam. We are going to talk about anomaly detection, and we are also going to be talking about in context of enhanced device timeline. One of the feedback that I did get during my visit to MMS last year, SOP. I'm not coming this year. It's all Matt's fault. You all must ask Matt why I'm not coming to MMS. Uh,
This is unfair. This is just straight up unfair. Yeah.
He's going to represent endpoint analytics people. It's recorded, Matt, so you've got to do this. But I think the important feedback that we got is there is this timeline. We see heuristics, we understand some of the events happening over a period of time, but why do we see only applications? Why do we see only aspects related to an application? Why not other events happening on a given device? And I think that feedback resonated very well with us, and which is where enhanced device timeline has been that effort to bring in the events from the client and be able to show that in conjunction with anomaly detection, so that as you look at it end to end, irrespective of whether you're coming top down from the funnel or you're doing an analysis bottom of the funnel, you are able to connect and look at the events happening on the device. And again, what I will be showing as part of the enhanced device timeline is going to be a subset of events collected from the client machine. But over a period of time, the effort is going to be to add more events to it. Now, I had to do this, right? Like, of course, the PMs, principal PMs, as Stephen mentioned, we had to do this. But I thought this was a great view for me to show where, as you think about Intune endpoint analytics, this is kind of like the cloud and the bubble where we deal with a lot of data from different sources, including the information that we collect from the client machines, irrespective of whether it's FLW or independent worker, right? And the story that you see here is not just connecting IT admin and support help desk personnel, but we also are thinking about it in context of Matt's favorite scope of work related to security. Like, how do we ensure that security related signals we are considering as part of anomaly? And how do we ensure that as we think about the correlation and remediation, we are also talking about the right kind of step that needs to be taken, right? Which is where I thought it was important to show this view, not just collecting the information real time, but also surfacing it to you in a real time manner and helping make the connection of the anomalies and talking through what are some of the remediations that we can go after. So, anomaly detection is that early warning mechanism. And Adam, you were saying, right, you had to wait for probably a couple of days for an end user to even complain about some issues. And there are times where I, as an end user, I've been okay to deal with an application crashing several times, even before I really reported or took that issue to the help desk, right? So that's like a commonly occurring scenario. So what do we do in such scenario, right? Anomaly detection is the answer to that kind of a scenario where we really want this to be an early warning mechanism where it is not reactive, where IT admins are like, oh my God, we don't know what's happening out there. And then we really wait for the support ticket to come through our way, and then we'll have to see what's going on. And then look at N number of dashboards trying to figure out and make the connection. No, I think here is where we really want to make things easier. The moment we see variance, deviation to the data points, we really want to surface it, even if it means at the beginning it could be a low or a medium severity anomaly. But then over a period of time, it could translate into a high severity anomaly, right? So that is where the power of anomaly detection kind of gets very important. Let's play this out a little bit, right? Now, let's say Adam is not very risk averse person, right? And then he decides, okay, let me create this policy. Let me roll out this policy as part of assignment A, and then see what happens. And he's done this for a very small subset of devices in his organization. Tada, something breaks, and there are these n number of devices where there are abnormal number of stop error restarts. And we, as part of anomaly detection, we surface this low or a medium severity anomaly. And then Adam looks at it and he's like, oh, this is a new anomaly. And what does it talk about? It is talking about stop error restarts, which has happened in a period of 48 hours. And he recognizes some of those devices because it was part of the assignments that he had rolled out. And he's like, okay, now we know what the root cause is. And that kind of helps in the direction of making updates to the assignments and rolling out the remediation. Adam, does that resonate?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think being able to, like I said, just being able to have visibility into the user or the issues as they're occurring, I think is really where we need to be. And I think being able to have a tool that you can depend on and reliably, I guess maybe even associate as part of your change management process would be a great way to look at this, where you say, okay, every time we decide to roll out a change, let's make sure that we're including that as part of including looking at endpoint analytics as part of the success factors that go into that deployment.
Totally. And in fact, one of the scenario that I was brainstorming with Matt, since we were talking about EPM, which we think is relevant, is especially, let's say an application has gone through an elevation process, and behind the scenes, what we do not know is if there has been a driver that is necessarily not compatible, or even a configuration that is not compatible with that elevation that was requested. The elevation could be successful, but after that, the application could undergo extensive number of crashes, right? Which is where, think about elevation as the key functionality that we are providing, where it makes life easier. And alongside, moment we see that, oh, there are a lot of anomalies happening and this particular application is going through a crash, we want to notify you so that you can take the right kind of actions and do the needed updates in terms of remediation.
Yeah, it's so important. That's why we trust on the EPM side, we trust the EA team, the endpoint analytics team, with our data, because they gather it at scale. They have all the processes in place to detect anomalies and things that happen, right? And anything that, like, Microsoft is one of the largest providers or largest sort of contributors to client data, endpoint client data, and we got to leverage that and show better insights back to admins. Like, you shouldn't have to guess. And even though Lavanya says Adam deployed to a small test group, he only deploys to production, all devices, all the time. So if you're frequently deploying production like I used to do, you should be able to make sure when you're in trouble and you need to cancel your evening plans, right? So that's the key.
Well, no,
yeah.
You need to tell your direct reports that they've got to cancel.
Now right. I just get to delegate. I might have clicked the button, but it's their problem now.
Yeah, right.
So an additional thing that I mentioned in the Tech Accelerator chat was around the idea of using this as part of your the ensuring that your security controls are functioning properly. So let's say I've got a third-party application that's critical to my security stack. So like a USB control utility or something, for instance. If that thing is failing, crashing, not running, or my always on VPN, even, like, we're depending on always on VPN being there because we're obviously doing SSL packet inspection on all of our traffic because, right? So we need our VPN up all the time.
How security sees that as secure. But anyway,
so
that's for a different conversation.
But if my VPN client is crashing and it's not running, having that information, knowing that that's happening is I think critical to assuring, because it's the whole trust but verify. Like, sure, I've never seen this happen on my computer, but how do I know that that's not happening out in the world and for all of my other devices? I tweeted recently the you want to know how good your PowerShell code is? Write some code that looks good, push it out as a proactive remediation, and then look at all the errors that come back and realize, oh my God, I did not anticipate clients being in this state. So, yeah.
It's the other side of that conversation. It's the mechanic's car. if you're running it on your computer, you're not going to acknowledge that there's actually a problem. You just go,
Yeah, it's true.
That's why we get UAT and BVT to validate, to make sure that everything's working, and we trust that they're going to provide us that feedback. This is where, with the anomaly detection, you can sit there and go, oh yeah, there was something actually happening, and I don't have to rely on them telling me that there's a problem.
Yeah, I think, I mean, even another scenario that we find frequently is when you get a recurring error message, users just get used to clicking OK to it or just bypassing it. And they've reported it to IT one time, and it's just not worth the hassle. And they're just, nothing's broken to them. It's just, whatever, just close the message and move on. And when you start looking into things, you realize, wow, these people have been all living with this. Wow, okay, we just completely missed that. So being able to see the data, I think, is really great, and just being able to give that better quality of life to your end users, for sure.
And also being able to hold your vendors to account when they've provided you not great software or drivers.
Indeed.
All great feedback, and some of the real life pain that we all go through, right? Like it's so common. Like for me, you wouldn't believe if I say that currently one of the devices that I'm using for this presentation is out of band. It's up for refresh, and I got a new laptop, and that new laptop had corrupted chip. Again, I'm not going to quote any model or manufacturer here, but then it had corrupted chip. It needed a motherboard replacement, and boom, 3 weeks into the new motherboard, it again conks, and it went through the second motherboard replacement. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to rely on my own laptop, though the performance is not great, though my applications are slow, but it is still my best buddy, right? Like it's a commonly occurring scenario, and I can so connect with end users who are experiencing productivity issues with their devices, right? It's a common scenario, and I think that's where the more quickly we can surface this to the IT admins and help desk, it kind of helps in the direction of addressing the issue and nipping it at the bud. And as against it trying to become such a big problem, then it needs to undergo a lot more changes, not just in terms of performance degradation, right? But also in terms of over a period of time, you are overworking all the hardware that's sitting on the device also. So I think it's going to be a combination of all of this. Now, kind of now that we have seen and heard a little bit about anomaly detection, one of the things that I did want to talk about is the second aspect of it, right? We are surfacing anomalies where we have a high level of confidence. And what does this mean, right? It's not like we are just looking at data and then we are selecting few with no necessarily an important logic backing behind it, right? We are actually leveraging statistical model behind this. And what we are doing is we are kind of going through 4 different kinds of models to be able to identify anomaly. That means to identify an abnormal app crash and app hang across your tenant, we use one of the models, which we call it as the Z-score model. Then we leverage that Z-score model in context of a time series based duration to see how much of deviation we are seeing, and then we surface that issue to you, right? Eventually, at some point in time, as we start narrowing it down, we also go through what we call it as the threshold-based heuristic model. That means, let's say, if 10% of the devices in your organization have undergone this app crash or app hang, and if this app crash and app hang has happened over a period of 48 hours, we are surfacing this as a high severity anomaly, right? So that means a lot of homework behind the scenes and legwork behind the scenes. We have taken care of it, and then we are surfacing these anomalies. Why is that important is as you go down the funnel and start looking at affected devices and come into this enhanced device timeline view, you absolutely know that these are some of the rogue events that has impacted the performance of the device. And then when you look at it in context of a histogram and a time series of the events captured from the device, you will be able to see, oh, there is this app crash that's occurred. Oh, there is a stop error restart that's occurred. And then now anomaly detection is also telling me that there is an issue with this device, right? That kind of helps you make the connection, not just to the individual events, but also to the comprehensive anomaly view that has led you to the enhanced device timeline, right? So that's kind of like the important connection between these two product features, which is where, as we think about the scenarios, we will talk a little more about this, right? What have we first gone after is the events that I have heard as maximum pain points in end users device, right? Which could be related to app crash and app hangs, so any kind of regressions, and the stop error restarts. Like, yes, it occurred with a bug check code of XYZ. I'm like, that makes no sense to the end user, because the end user is not going to go back, do a lookup and figure out what is really going on, which is where we tell you that, oh, there is a stop error restart that's occurred, and this is the bug check code, and this is the X number of time that's happening. And then behind the scenes, we are trying to figure out, okay, how are they correlated? What are the cohorts in which this particular error is occurring? Is it the cohort of devices where Adam really was brave enough to go apply some change in the production environment? Or is it some other change which we applied in the test environment? I think that's kind of like the clarity we try to provide with these two categories of scenarios that we have tackled. Now, even before I kind of jump to the demo, a couple of things that I did want to call out, which I thought was important, is for you to be able to try out this advanced endpoint analytics feature, you first need to be enrolled to advanced endpoint analytics, and then to understand more about the advanced endpoint analytics and how these features work. I don't like this part, and I'll kind of put Lior on spot. Talk to Lior, he will tell you how to get this started and go through the whole licensing process and to be able to get the subscription for this advanced endpoint analytics, right? And there is also some important resources here, which I think is very helpful for you as you want to understand more about the features and the models. But very important thing is, in our external documentation, you must take time to read through the statistical models to understand how we are helping you identify those anomalies and how those anomalies are very relevant to your ecosystem, and to how eventually, as part of the next set of super interesting feature that I'm working with my data sciences team on, is the correlation aspect of it. And you will be able to appreciate these statistical models a lot more as we get there. But before that, I know I did talk for some call to action and resources links, and I see that our dear friend and manager, Mr. Adam, is not very happy. So let's hear more about why.
I'm very happy. I think
It's
this is
just his
great.
resting. It's just his resting face.
It
He's
is
just
resting
very
face.
Angry.
No, I've got a thought on this. That was my thinking face. So maybe this exists, but if it doesn't, sorry, this is another feature request. So here's the scenario. So I'm formerly an admin. Let's say I'm pretending to be an admin now, and I'm in the Intune console, and I make a policy.
You're one of those managers that aren't giving up their admin privileges, aren't you?
Can we just go down the rabbit hole for a moment? Okay, so hypothetically, a couple of weeks ago, a manager may or may not have made a change to a certificate policy that was critical to the network access control system functioning properly. And that admin, or that former admin, now manager, was then spent the day trying to recover from said access control problems, because no one could get into the business network because their certificates were broken. So in such a scenario, would you be able to track and correlate in the device timeline, for instance, the time that, say, a policy change occurred from an Intune, when I've synced policies. So I got a policy sync. Now I get a delta in my policies from the last time that you saw my machine. So, and then all of a sudden I start seeing some weird behavior. My network doesn't work, or I'm getting blue screens or things. Do you have a way to, or is that part of what you're building to be able to show me the correlation that, hey, you made a policy change, the client applied it right at this time, and immediately following that they started seeing behavior issues? Because if not, that'd be really cool.
So the good news, Adam, and I'm going to make the manager happy here. I think we all want our managers to be happy. So what you would be excited to know is device compliance as well as the policies are two important follow-up areas outside of the app crash, app hang, and the stop error restarts that we are actively looking at. And you would be super thrilled to know that very soon, as part of MMS, our dear friend Dano is going to help conduct some roundtable sessions with our customers to be able to understand what are some of those policy-related changes that has caused deterioration in terms of the device performance, and what are some of those key conditional access related policies that we should be thinking about as we look at our second set of anomaly signals. So that's already work in progress. We are looking to bring that into our anomaly detection scope of work. At the moment, as we speak, we are doing some initial investigation, and as part of which customer conversations have been initiated. And one of the very first customer call is happening on Monday, if that kind of helps, Adam, right? And if you are interested in spending some time sharing feedback, I'm happy to set up some time to go with this a little more in detail.
Cool.
I made the manager happy.
Doesn't take much.
No, just give them a little shiny little report in the bubble.
Yeah. Now show me a demo, Lavanya. We've been waiting.
Yeah.
We sat through the slide deck.
Demo it.
Come on.
Demo.
Oh
We
my
keep
God.
breaking
Do
the
we have
rules. Every
data?
time we bring on PMs, all we do is slide decks, and we just
Yeah.
need demos. It needs to be a new rule, Steve.
Yeah,
More
I need
decks.
to.
Talk while you click. That's it. It's the deal.
Okay, let's see.
I know we have to figure out how to share from StreamYard.
Oh my God, I'm so used to doing the PowerPoints now. I don't know how to do the demo. I am here, and I have set up this tenant and the test environment. Hope it all works, and hope I remember how to get to endpoint analytics. I'm so used to having everything in the slide, Adam. You're putting me in trouble.
I would have demoed in my tenant, except I only have one device, so it wouldn't show much.
That's what happens when you get elevated as a manager.
Man, I know what's my other T-shirt for MMS.
What's it?
No longer an admin.
No longer.
Don't listen to me. I'm a manager.
Oh man, you're such a
All
good
right.
sport. I'll get heckled
Oh,
about
boy.
it.
Can you all pray to your Almighty and say that let this demo work? This
No.
is Lavanya's first time being on the session.
I know this is your first time on here, and you probably don't know this, but it's tradition for your demos not to work here.
Yep.
So
Hmm.
we would be
I at
surprised
least
if it
see
did work.
one anomaly. Okay, at least I see one anomaly here. I don't know. Some magic has happened. Let's go with the magic. So as you see here, the anomalies show up in the endpoint analytics, and as we were talking, and I was trying to navigate and trying to remember. Don't share that secret with anyone. But I was able to come into this anomalies tab, which is on the overview blade of advanced endpoint analytics. You will see that anomalies will surface in the pane below. Again, by default, high severity anomalies will show up at the top, followed by medium, low, and informational severity. And here you will see aggregation of the total number of severities. Now, this gives a very interesting count whether this anomaly is a newly detected one, and it also talks about the number of devices that's been affected and when the date was created and latest occurrence. Since it's a demo environment, don't pay much attention to some of the nuances, though I know I have to be nice with Adam the next time on. But here, as you see, this talks about the models that I was talking about as part of the initial part of the conversation. So take some time, go through the statistical models. If any of you out there would like to know more about these models, you know where to find me. If not, Adam knows answers to all the hard questions. Stephen, I love you. That's why I'm not putting you on spot, as you can see.
I'm fine with that.
Let's go back here. This is a system metadata page. And at the moment, it may feel like, oh, this is very basic information. We just have the severity, state, affected devices. What's so much fun other than the statistical model? What you all have been asking as some of the product features, and as I have been talking about some of the upcoming features, which is the correlation aspect of it and being able to identify device cohorts. This is going to be a very critical page where a lot of those information will be available. Again, we do not want to overload with too much of information in this view. We are going to come up with top 5 patterns, at the most top 5 patterns, which are nothing but cohort of devices being impacted due to the pattern, which could be a combination of app version and an OS version. It could be a combination of app version and a driver version, or it could be something to do with the driver and some other application version mismatch. It could be any of these patterns that could have led to this anomaly, and that's the information you're going to see here. Is this something that I'm just saying out of blues? No, this is currently work that is happening behind the scenes. The model work has been completed. We are now working on integrating with the actual data lineage and testing that out to ensure that we have right kind of results where we have maximum confidence on the correlation and the patterns that surface. Because like I said, we are not going to have too many number of patterns. At the most, we're going to have 5 patterns. So every single pattern, we really want to be sure of the information that we are surfacing. So that's happening behind the scenes. And as you get into this view, this is a very important view which talks about, okay, these are the devices. If I want to look at it from a manufacturer and a model view perspective, we have that information also available for you alongside any other EA report where we do have the standard cuts of the OS also. So that's available for you to look at. Now, let's say we take a look at this device. Okay. Oh, Adam, it did show up some data for me. As you see here, it talks about the sources, it talks about the events and details around this event, right? And like I mentioned, one of the important things here for us to understand is it is going to show us events that has occurred over the last 29 days on the client machine, because the retention policy is the standard Intune retention policy and the one that's available as part of our terms and conditions also, right, for the data collection. Now, other than the stop error restarts, app crash, app hang, you will see the source showing up as Intune anomaly detection, which kind of helps you understand, oh, there was this app crash that occurred. If I had to tee this back into the workflow that I came from, which is anomaly detection, you will be able to see that also. And then if you want to kind of adjust this to a specific window, you want to go back in to a specific point in time, you can do that, and you should be able to see some of those errors also. And tada, like you see here, you will see an Intune anomaly detection. Again, some of the duration that you see in this view could be a little longer, but then the important takeaway here is this histogram and a heuristic view is very important to look at all the events that's been affecting a device and being able to filter them by dates. One of the requests that we have received is, can we filter them by events? At this point in time, the filtering capability is currently provided just for the time range, but we want to change that, and we want to bring in the bring in the other attributes also to the filtering conversation. and more I think about it, Adam, to your previous comment, I'm thinking about it from a scope type perspective. So probably you should tell us if that's relevant and how you would use it if we had to think about it from a scope type standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that would still apply. I'm looking at this thinking, so I could see using somehow overlaying timelines together between so you're talking about device cohorts, like maybe it doesn't work so much for the timeline because that would be kind of strange, but being able to show all the device, be able to view this sort of graph, but in with all of your devices represented that are part of the scope or group that you're looking at, I think would be interesting. The other kind of thing I was wondering is, is there any configuration that you can do on this to say, like, let's say you have an app that's just noisy, like it always crashes and we know it's going to crash and there's nothing we can do about it, and we don't want to keep we don't want it to keep showing up. Like it's like the mechanic's car, like Steve said before, like we know it's going to have problems and there's no resolution, but it's going to keep flagging on our list. We don't want it to be there anymore. Can we filter those off and say, don't show me these anomalies anymore from this particular app crash type instance or something along those lines?
This is the first time that request has come my way, but I think that's an interesting problem to solve, because I can totally relate to why you are having that ask. And I'm kind of for a minute taking a step back and thinking about it from an implementation standpoint, which I shouldn't be, but then I'm thinking about it because today what happens is we look at the apps on a device and for a given tenant as a whole, and then we try to figure out of this, as a whole, are we seeing abnormal crashes and hangs? And then we try to narrow down the scope of the issues also, right? So in that, we do come to an extent of getting very specific to an application and then saying that, oh, this particular application did crash extensively on over 10% of the devices. Now, to your point, if that application happens to be a noisy one, you're not even interested in seeing that, right? How could we filter that out or kind of add it as part of your block list, specifically as more as a setting or a configuration, is something that we can think about. And I think that's a great feature ask.
If you need a good candidate for it, and just install Skype for Business and just let it run for a bit. That's a good one.
Okay.
We see it currently in the current iteration of Endpoint Analytics. When I'm looking through the device health information that's already there, we see that app crashes for Skype for Business is one of the top ones on a lot of our devices. I've never dug into it to figure it out because it's Skype for Business. I've been told it was going away. That's been like 6 years, but we're close. Never been closer. But it's one of those, like, yeah, you get to that point where we're gonna fix this. It's gonna go away. We just don't need to see this in the list anymore. Because let's say you tie in things to the heuristics here and you say, if you've detected anomalies, I want to trigger ticket events or I want to trigger automatic remediations. I don't necessarily want some particular apps to be part of that or something. Would be kind of the way to look at that. So anyway, it's one of those. Sorry, this is what I do. I like what you've done, but now do more is kind of how it always goes. But it's cool.
We are here. I have all years listening into the amazing feedback. So kind of going back to your other feature request related to the policies and also the add-on that I had with regard to the device compliance, we want to start bringing these events. What I was just saying is, in this view, we also want to bring in the policy-related events and also the device compliance-related events. So that way, what happens is when you did have an assignment that necessarily didn't succeed, that event, failure event, you want to be able to see it in this view. So that's
he's catching up.
See, because your demo works, we got to deal with this. It's the demons. If your demo didn't work, we would have been solid, right?
You just checked out. All right. Sorry, Lavanya. You're trying to make a point.
Yeah, no, I was just saying we are thinking about bringing in some of those events, Adam, as you were talking about the feature request related to network adapter connection issues due to a policy being deployed. Those are some of the events we want to start capturing in this view. Again, the call out for you all is don't think about this device timeline in context of endpoint analytics sitting inside reports. That's not how we are thinking about it, right? We are thinking about this device timeline in context of our organization's ecosystem and how it can kind of start bringing in all those needed events that is helpful for a device troubleshooting and not a device that we are seeing in a small cohort and trying to do a troubleshooting, right? So that's kind of like the important message I did want to land with all of you.
Good point.
All
right. So
before my demo
so Steve,
was there any other question?
Steve posted his question. So it seems like his video might be better now.
Back.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You're there.
Yes. Do it.
I've switched to another network.
But your question is exactly was my follow-up question as well. So go ahead.
So the question comes down to, this is great, but is there the ability that I can pipe this across into log analytics or a third-party platform to process that data that I can then go and put my heuristics over the top of it as well? So in Adam's scenario where he's sitting there and saying, you know what, I know that this app's an issue, I'm going to exclude it. Can I pull that data across into Sentinel, into log analytics and go, yep, cool, I know that's a problem, don't worry about it, let's focus on everything else?
So you may not like me for this answer, but nevertheless, let me try. And please call me back for the next session. I think the log analytics part of it and the request around getting this data to log analytics, we are kind of evaluating it. Just dumping this as is into log analytics without the correlation is going to be very, very weak by itself. And hence the conversation is more around what really would help our customers in context of this information of not just the events, but also the anomalies as a package. How would it help you as you think about interlacing with the other data sets? That evaluation process is currently work in progress. But I don't have anything super exciting to share right away, but we will come back to that hard question again.
Fair enough.
If not, you can ask Matt during the State of Union.
Sure. Be bopping around with a microphone, living the dream.
It's gonna be great. Well, so Lavanya, I mean, so I think you unshared, unless we're having other issues.
I did unshare because I didn't want my demo to stop working, and I didn't want to jinx it because you said demos don't work, and I wanted to try that out. So before it stopped working, I'm like, can I stop?
Success.
But did you want me to go back to the demo? I'm happy to, Adam.
No, well, I mean, only if you've got more to show. I think we've got a good understanding of what's going on and what you're pulling back. I love as we've said with all of these things, this is a great step in the right direction. The idea that we're going to have a new suite of new stuff. It's not just enhancements on existing things, but it's brand new things that are coming out, doing things in a completely different way than we've seen before. I think as this matures, as this grows, we're going to see folks leveraging this. I think the community will start sharing different things. I really hope that we start seeing the ability to take this back to device or to application or device manufacturers and saying, hey guys, look, I've got proof. I remember there was a feature before Endpoint Analytics. I'm pretty sure there was something. There was a blue screen report, blue screen of death report, and it showed that our VPN client, or I think it was like a current version of our VPN client, had been blue screening and crashing and causing issues. And we were able to take that data and forward it directly to the manufacturer and say, guys, we have proof your app has a problem. And we were able to then take that and pinpoint all the devices that were having the issue and drill into it. So general concept here is anytime that you can see those patterns arise, it absolutely immediately gives you actionable areas to be able to go focus on. And I think even like the idea that or the thing that's always very, very difficult in troubleshooting is the whole it works on my machine, or I only know about this one, but I don't know about any of the others, but I don't want to test fixes on this one in case there are others, and I've burned my only test machine, so those types of scenarios. So if I can very quickly say, oh, great, I've got a pool of 10 other devices that have the issue, so I know that I can work on this one, and if I accidentally fix it and don't know how, I haven't completely burned the one that I had available to test on. Those types of things. So being able to group devices that are having the issue, see them all in single pane of glass. I love this. I think this is going to be incredible.
Yeah, and I'm hoping currently some of the work that we are doing, and also the UX that I'm trying to finalize with my design team, hopefully by the time we have the MVP summit, if it's all finalized, at least I want to kind of give a sneak peek into how I'm thinking about presenting the data in the Anomaly system metadata page. So that kind of will help gather some early feedback to say whether this view resonates. This is great, but can you add some more to it, or can you adjust this? Those are some of the feedback that definitely I would be looking for. And like you said, some part of this conversation, one of our PG team members who would be representing Endpoint Analytics alongside Matt and Dano will also be there. So she will also be able to help take in some of those questions. And I know that Panu and I hope I'm saying the name right, Merlin from Berlin. I think so.
That's right.
Yeah. So
Belgium. I don't know. Belgium. Merlin from Belgium. Yeah.
But yeah, so they are doing another session on endpoint analytics. So I would suggest the more voice we have there, and more you all can help represent endpoint analytics and gather the feedback and share it with me and my team, that'll be great. And I know Matt will be there, of course, alongside all the grief that I have given him for not taking me along to MLS. Just kidding. I think he will do great in terms of bringing back some of the feedback he hears on endpoint analytics, because I think those are some of the things that kind of keeps me motivated. And especially when I look at a translation of some of the surveys that I ran during MMS last year, and today it being a live product, it's amazing. It's very satisfying, right? And we want to continue to do that. So policies, Adam, you like it or not, you have signed up. I've volunteered you. I'm going to set up some time with you to understand more, to learn about the scenario. And Stephen, outside of this call, you can tell me what you want to talk about, and then I'll make time and we'll brainstorm some of those awesome ideas.
I'll see you at MVP Summit.
Love it. Adam, are you going to be there?
No, I'm going to be overseas for a work trip.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You didn't plan that well, did you?
Actually, I did plan it well, and then the planning went sideways. Anyway, so we could go on and on about this, because I've got lots of thoughts and ideas, and I know a lot of this stuff's already on your roadmap. We've had previous discussions around some of this, and I can't say enough how much I'm excited about this. Just as excited as Matt was about EPM, I'm excited about endpoint analytics. I think this is where it's at.
Are you saying you're more excited about this than EPM?
If it
probably is.
Yeah.
He loves
I
data.
reckon he would be. He's manager, so it's all about the data.
The crazy thing about what Lavanya is doing Like this is how I sort
Oh,
of
don't start
No.
dissing Lavanya just because
No, no,
she's
no,
got
no,
a better
the-
product than yours. This
Yeah,
is not
it's-
right,
it's
Matt.
not about that.
We're gonna
I'm about
mute
to
you.
I'm
compliment
waiting, totally
I'm
waiting
about
for
to
that.
compliment her, okay? Calm down.
Okay,
big dog.
okay.
Okay. So the crazy thing about this is that I always think about data and troubleshooting as like walking into an escape room that you're locked into and you have to find the key. And the anomaly detection stuff is like somebody, like the person who runs the escape room walking in with a flashlight and pointing at one wall. And now you can just like, you have an area to focus. So that way you can find the problem faster or correlate faster. Like, man, I can't remember back when I was managing desktops going through like log upon log upon log upon log until you're like, oh, the cert validation failed. Well, that isn't really an issue because Windows just ignores it by default, right? And then you keep going and going and going. And then finally you find this one thing like, it's in front of me the whole time. Why didn't I see it, right? I think everybody who's done that sort of fit into that. So that's what's so cool about the anomaly detection. Like, hey, I'm just going to tell you what's important to look at. And I'm going to help you cheat because the only way to get ahead in data is to cheat with analytics, right? So yeah, it's important.
So I know
And
I was
AI.
dissing on Skype earlier, but legitimately, is Microsoft using this data to help find anomalies with their own products to fix them without and the correlation to that is, so I want to be able to click a button that sends a note to the vendor who owns that app that says, hey man, look at all this crash data. I just want to be able to forward it. You know, let's randomly pick out Adobe. Hey, Adobe's crashed. I want to just be able to, I know they don't, you'd have to know all the vendor.
So
But it would be wonderful. Just be able to bundle it up and forward it to their support and say, look, I've got proof.
I'm not going to lie. Today, if you go into anomaly detection, if let's say Teams is crashing extensively in a given period of time, it will surface that. And we are not hiding that information, right? Because we take the endpoint and the health of the endpoint as seriously, and it could be a performance degradation that could be happening because of a first party or a third party app, doesn't matter. We want to be transparent about it, but we are also super serious about how do we fix it, how do we take care of it, right? And again, as much as it's about you escalating to the Microsoft help desk, it's also an avenue for us to kind of make other Microsoft products better by sharing this feedback and what we are observing, right? So, yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Great job, Lavanya. Incredible.
Thank you.
Well, I've enjoyed it. Hopefully the folks watching have enjoyed it and are going to be taking a look at this and digging in. We'll have links probably in the description to all the relevant places for things. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you, Lavanya, for giving us your time and for joining us. We'd love to have you back on. Matt, well, thanks for, yep.
I got your back, man. No worries.
Thank you all. And
thank you,
Stephen,
and we're looking forward to what's coming.
definitely.
So look forward to being back with you all in the session. This was so much fun. And thank you, Adam and Stephen, for having me here. I really loved it.
Absolutely.
Not a problem at all. We'd
And
love
honestly,
having you here.
we will have you back on with Jóhannes. He was invited. He had a previous engagement. He couldn't make it. But he definitely, he said, if Lavanya's on, I'm coming. And then he bailed on us anyway. So anyway, he didn't say anything about you, Matt.
It's great follow through from Jóhannes there. So
Mhm.
I'll love to see it.
I know. Anyway, very good. Thank you guys.
Thank
And
you
we'll
all.
see you all later.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.